Hi class, today we're going to be looking at problems 17 through 21 in chapter 2. Alright, you should be able to see on your screen now. Chapter 2, problem 17b. In chapter 2, we're learning how to calculate salaries and we're learning how to calculate overtime. And in this problem, it says during the first week in April, Courtney Nelson worked 46 hours and produced 1,450 units under a piece rate system. So this employee is working in a manufacturing environment. They are being paid according to the pieces that they produce. The regular piece rate is 38 cents a unit. Nelson is paid overtime according to the Fair Labor Standards Act ruling for overtime work under a piece rate system. What this means is that they are using method A. They didn't tell you this in the problem, but that's what they're using to solve this particular problem. When we're working with piece rate systems, there are two methods, a method A and a method B. This problem is working with method A. In a method A, for a piece rate system, we're going to calculate the overtime earnings at 1/2 of the regular hourly rate multiplied by the number of hours worked in excess of 40 hours. So for method A, this is how we calculate overtime. In the next problem that I'm going to do with you, we're going to cover a piece rate system, method B. And it's going to be a little bit different than this one. So I want you to make sure that you know that this is method A of the piece rate system. And in method A, we're going to calculate the overtime earnings at 1/2 of the regular hourly rate multiplied by the number of hours in excess of 40. In part A of this problem, they want you to calculate the piecework earnings. So what we're going to do is we're going to take the number of pieces that we have produced, and for this problem, it stated that this employee produced 1,450 units. So I'm taking that straight from the problem, and we're going to multiply that by the piece rate per unit, which is also given at 38 cents in this problem. So to find the regular piece rate earnings, you're going to multiply the number of pieces produced times the piece rate per unit that they are being paid, and that will give you the regular piece work earnings. The piecework earnings in this case is $551. Again, we took $1,450 and multiplied it by 38 cents. These are your regular piece rate earnings. Because we're using method A and they want us to eventually calculate the overtime, we have to know that overtime is calculated at 1/2 of the regular hourly rate. So we have to find what the regular hourly rate is before we can find the overtime rate. So here, I got that spelled wrong, so let me fix that for you. We're going to calculate the regular hourly rate. And to do that, we're going to take the piecework earnings that we found before, and we're going to divide this by, notice it's 46 hours that this employee worked. So it's by the hours that are worked per week that we divide this into the regular piece earnings, and that will give you the hourly rate. The hourly rate in this situation is $11.98. Excuse me. Now, we're going to need to calculate the overtime hourly rate. And to do this, based on method A, it's 1/2 of the regular hourly rate we found before. So $11.98 is your regular hourly rate. We're going to multiply that by 50% or divide it by 2, and that will give you the overtime hourly rate. So the overtime hourly rate is $5.99. They also want you to calculate the overtime earnings. So to do this, we're going to take our overtime hourly rate that we just calculated, and we're going to multiply that by the overtime hours over 40. Since this person worked 46 hours, then 6 hours is our overtime hours. We're going to multiply that by the overtime rate, and that will give us $35.94 rounded. Remember, you carry it out 3 places and round it back to 2, according to our instructions for this class. Calculate the total earnings next, which would be your regular piece rate earnings that we found in A, and then we're going to add our overtime earnings to that we just calculated at $35.94. The total earnings in this problem would be $586.94. So in this problem, make sure you know how to calculate overtime earnings for piecework using method A. On the next problem that we're going to do, which is problem 18, we're also going to be working with piece rates. During the first week of April, Courtney Nelson worked 46 hours and produced 1,450 units under its piece rate system. The regular piece rate is 38 cents. Notice in this problem, they've got some extra information that says that Nelson had agreed with her employer before the performance of the work that she would be paid 1.5 times the regular piece rate for all pieces that are produced during the overtime hours. And we call this method method B. Method A, if you'll remember, was 1/2 of the hourly rate, but method B gives you 1.5 times the piece rate for all pieces that are produced during the overtime hours. So it says, assume that her production totals for the week were 1,120 pieces during regular hours. So she's going to be paid at 38 cents for 1,120 pieces. That would be her regular rate, her regular earnings. And then there are 330 pieces that are during overtime that we're going to take and multiply 1.5 times the regular piece rate and then times it by the 330 pieces that were produced during overtime, and that's going to give us our overtime amount. Again, I've restated that method B, employees are going to be paid at 1.5 times the piece rate for each piece that is produced during the overtime hours. In part A, they wanted you to calculate the piecework earnings. Pieces are produced during the regular hours were 1,120. That's what they told you were produced during the regular working hours. 1,120 units were produced. The piece rate is 38 cents that was given. You multiply the number of pieces produced times the piece rate, and that gives you the regular piece rate earnings. In part B, they want you to calculate the overtime earnings. So we're going to take the piece rate that was given at 38 cents per unit, and we're going to multiply it by 1.5 times for method B. The piece rate is multiplied by 1.5 times. The overtime piece rate will be 57 cents. It's going to be paid on each piece that is produced during overtime. The overtime pieces produced are 330 pieces that was given. We'll multiply that by the overtime piece rate that we came up with right here. We multiply that by 330, and that will give us our overtime earnings of $188.10. Then you're going to calculate your total earnings, which is your total regular piecework earnings, which we calculated in Part A. We're going to add to it our overtime earnings that we calculated in Part B, and then we're going to find our total earnings by combining those together. The total earnings are $613.70. So this is how you pay for production workers that are working by the piece rate with method B for piece rate overtime. So we're going to go ahead and move to the next problem, which doesn't have anything to do with piece rates. They're not in a manufacturing environment in this problem. But what we're going to be is a retail person, and we're going to earn a commission. And so we're going to learn how to calculate commissions with problem 19B. Miranda Spun, a sales representative, earns an annual salary. Notice that says annual salary of $34,500 and receives a commission on that portion of her annual sales that exceeds $150,000. So in other words, she has to sell at least $150,000 worth of whatever it is that they're selling before she can earn a commission. The commission is 9.5% on all sales up to $50,000 above the quota. The quota was $150,000. So if she has sales above $150,000, she will be paid 9.5% on $50,000 above this $150,000 amount that she has to make. Beyond that, she's going to receive an extra commission of 12% on her total sales for the past year, on 12% of the amount that is above the 200,000, let's say, because the base salary was 150. She has to do 150 before she can be paid a commission. Then she's paid 50,000 on the next 50,000, which would be 200,000 all total. And if she earns over 200,000, then she's going to get 12% commission on the amount of sales over the 200,000. So her total sales for the past year were 315,000. So that means she's going to get both commissions. So we got to be able to figure out how to do that. The regular annual salary was the given amount. So in A, they just ask you for what they would already stated. This is the annual amount of salary. In B, they want you to calculate the regular commission based on if she makes over 150,000, up to 50,000, she can get 9.5%. If she makes over 200,000, she gets the remaining amount of commission at 12%. So I'm going to start with the total sales that were given. This employee sold a total amount of 315,000. We're going to subtract out the base salary that she has to sell without a commission, which was given at 150,000. What that means is she has made sales above 150,000 of 165,000. That's going to be available for her commission. But part of that 165,000, only 50,000 is available for commission at 9.5%. The remaining amount of 115,000, after you have subtracted out the 50,000 above this, means that we're going to pay her an additional 12% based on this 115,000 that she went above her normal quota. So here's how we calculate it. The sales available for commissions at 9.5% would have been 50,000. That comes from right here. Because she had total sales of 315, she had to do a quota of 150,000, which she covered. She has 165 left for basing her commissions. The first 50,000 of that 165,000 is going to be a commission at 9.5%. So we're going to take 50,000 and multiply it by 9.5%, and that's going to give us a total commission on those 50,000 above the quota of 150,000. She gets commissions of 4,750. She also gets a commission at 12% based on 115,000. So originally the sales were 315,000 that she made for that period of time. Subtract out your first $150,000 quota amount. You've got 165,000 left to calculate commissions. The first 50,000 of that 165,000 is at 9.5%. The remaining 115,000 is going to be multiplied by 12% commission to get another commission amount of 13,800. To find the total amount of commissions, we take the commissions on the sales of 50,000 that was above quota at 47.50, which we found here. We just brought that down. And we take the amount of the commissions that was based on $115,000 of sales, which was 13,800. Combine the two of those together, the total commission is 18,550. Your total earnings would be your regular annual earnings plus the total commissions that we just found gives you the total annual earnings. This is the amount that they earned for that year. So let's move to the next problem. On the next problem, it says that Maria Cohen is employed as a salesperson in the men's department of Lee's Fashions. In addition to her weekly base of $400, that's her salary base of $400, which was for a 35-hour work week, Cohen is paid a commission of 1% on her total net sales for the week. To find the net sales, you'll take the gross sales and you'll subtract out any customer returns. That'll leave you with the net sales. And the net sales, she gets a 1% commission on the total of that net sales. During the past week, to promote the sale of its fine cashmere sweaters, Lee has agreed to pay Cohen an additional push money of 3% of the total net sales of cashmere sweaters. Cohen's weekly sales tally is given below. So here's what they gave to you in this problem. They gave you the items that were sold. They gave you the gross sales of those items, and they also gave you the sales return. What you have to do is you have to figure the net sales. And so what I did is I just added a column to this table and called it net sales. And to find net sales, you would subtract the customer returns from the gross sales. So for regular sweaters, they sold 600 in gross sales. You're going to subtract $58 from that to get the net sales amount. You do the same thing with your cashmere sweaters. The gross sales were $895. You're going to subtract $75 in returns, and that's going to leave you with a net sales amount of $820. Your ties, there were no customer returns, so the gross sales is equal to the net sales in this case. You had dress shirts, you sold $445 worth, but $39 of those came back to the store. They were returned. So you're going to subtract the 39 from the 445 to give you the net sales amount. For your sports shirts, the gross sales was $585. You had $45 in return, so you subtract that from the $585, and that leaves you with $540 in net sales. When you combine all of the net sales together, the total amount of net sales for this person is $2,498. So what we're going to have to do on this problem is we're going to have to compute Cohen's total weekly earnings first by showing the weekly salary base, and that amount was given. That was $400. You'll remember they gave us that the weekly base was $400. That's a given amount. You are going to have to calculate the sales commissions. First of all, there was a 1% commission based on total net sales. The total of our net sales that we calculated was all of these added together. 2,498,000 would be multiplied by 1% to get the commission of 1% on the net sales amount. Also, this person was given a push money commission for the sale of cashmere sweaters. The net sales of cashmere sweaters came from the table. 820 right here is your net sales. We're going to multiply that by 3%, her commission rate on the cashmere sweaters, and that gave her a commission of $24.60. To find the total commissions, we would add the 1% commission on the total net sales and the $24.60 commission on selling cashmere sweaters. Add those together to get your total commissions. When we're calculating our total weekly earnings, we're going to take the given amount of $400, our weekly base salary. We're going to add our total commissions to this, which would be $49.58. And those total commissions were 1% of the net sales amount and 3% of the net sales of the cashmere sweaters. When we combine the two of these together, that gives us our total weekly earnings. On our next problem, Connie Gibbs is collecting a bonus for her department safety record for the year, which is 52 weeks during the year. During that year, Gibbs worked an average of 44 hours each week. What they want you to do is calculate the extra overtime pay due Gibbs for that year. So we're going to start with our bonus, and we're going to divide it by 52 weeks in the year to get the weekly bonus amount. The weekly bonus amount would be divided by the hours worked to get the hourly rate. Our hourly rate is then multiplied by 50% to get the overtime rate. And the overtime rate is 44 cents. That's half of the hourly rate. The overtime rate would be multiplied by the number of overtime hours. The overtime hours in this case was above 40 hours. So they worked 44 hours, that's 4 hours above 40 that would be paid at the overtime amount, or $1.76. To find the overtime earnings, we're going to take $1.76, and then we're going to multiply that by 52 weeks in the year, and that will give you the total overtime earnings for the entire year. So this is what it would be each week for that bonus that they have incurred, and then we'd multiply that by 52 weeks, and the total overtime earnings for the year is $91.52. And so that's all I want to talk to you about as far as your B problems are concerned today. So I'm going to stop sharing this with you, and I'll see you again next time. Bye-bye.